Hello there, it's Beck and Deb, and
Hello.
welcome to this week's live show. So a very, very warm welcome. And as always, just before we dive into the show, we just want to let you know about a couple of things that are going on. So we have got coming up very soon our first ever virtual retreat. In light of all the joys of lockdown, we had a retreat booked in June, and because at the moment we're not able to get together in that way, we decided to move it online. We're still going to have oodles of fun, lots of connection and amazing conversations, but from the joys of your own home. You know, you can be in your pajamas, you can stay in bed, you can be, you know, feet up with your cup of tea in hand. So yeah, we're going to have a go at a first ever virtual retreat, and we're really looking forward
to having
it.
some really nice conversations about what we're going to do.
Yeah,
so that's
how we're going to make it fun, how we're going to make it a bit kind of different to just any other online webinar you can attend. So if you want to know a bit more about that, all the information's on our website, daretobeyu.co.uk/virtual retreat. We made it nice and simple for you. So go and have a look at that if you'd like to. It'd be great to have you with us.
Yeah, and one of the other things that we've been getting up to quite a lot during lockdown is our mentoring courses. Beck and I just love working with people, either in very small groups or one-to-one. And so we have been putting out there a bit that we're doing that mentoring courses, and they are such fun. We dive deeply into the understanding that we share. There is nowhere that we won't go. And you know, also we talk about very practical stuff. You know, what's going on in your life, what do you want to do, what do you want to achieve. So it's kind of like a two-pronged thing, and it's really, really good fun. So if you are interested in doing mentoring with us, and we also do mini mentoring, which is kind of little tasters of what goes on if you want to dip your toe in the water, that is also, the information about that is on our website, or you can get in contact with us and ask us about it, because yeah, we would love you to do that with us too.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off is living, learning and loving. So living and learning this week, I think for me that has been coming back to looking at thought again. Like I can't even really put into words how it is that looking and being reminded about how thought works, how powerful that is, and how it's very simple and kind of easy to kind of look at in some ways, and yet it has such a deep impact. Like each time I come back and kind of get reminded about thought again, it's just,
thought is one of those things, isn't it?
It's kind of one of those things.
It's almost like the water for the goldfish, isn't it? It's something that is so, we are swimming in it all the time, aren't we? And yet it's one of those things that it looks to me like it's hidden in plain sight a lot.
Yeah.
You know, and just kind of, to me, getting curious about what is thought and what is the role that it plays in my experience. And just when I kind of ask that question and start to look, it's amazing what comes, and we do begin to see the huge part that it plays in our moment to moment experience. So tell me some of the things that have been, when you say thoughts hit you, what do you mean?
I know, just in so many ways. Like I feel like what often happens to me over the course of a week is that something kind of plays around in my mind, and then I just have different experiences and different things come to me about it. And definitely over the last week, I've been kind of toying again with how is thought what creates our experience? How does it, you know, work in that way? How does thought work? And what happens when sometimes we appear to have thoughts that we just pay zero attention to, and they've just come and gone, and yet other times they've sort of, you know, taken up root, moved in, brought all their belongings, brought their family with them, and they don't go anywhere. And I was listening just this morning actually to a recording, a short video. I signed up for a free 5-day challenge with a lady that we've done some work with recently, Vicky Montague.
Shout out to Vicky.
Yeah, and I'm going to shamelessly steal the metaphor she used, because it actually, you know, really kind of settled for me in some. She was talking about how, you know, pretend for a minute you're a checkout worker at a supermarket, and there's the kind of conveyor belt with the food coming past that somebody's buying, and as you're checking it through, there'll be some food that you absolutely love and think, oh, I'm going to add that to my shopping this week. There'll be some food that you think, oh, I can't imagine why anybody would buy that, And then there'll be some that's fairly neutral. Yeah, I could have that on my shopping, but I'm probably not that fussed either. You know, and that's the same with thought. It's just this constant conveyor belt. And sometimes they're thoughts that we're like, oh, I love this one. I love how, you know, how much I enjoy this thought. Other times,
don't want that one.
Yeah, other times it's like, nah, I don't want that whatsoever. And then equally, there's some that's kind of neutral. And that really, for me, kind of just reminded me again how thought does that. And it's like those thoughts that we kind of, or those food items we look at and think, yeah, I could take that, I could eat that right now. And those ones that we think, oh no, move along, I don't want that. We do the same with our thoughts. And yet what seems to get confused, or what I've seen can happen, is that we kind of sometimes take the food that we wouldn't want to eat and start trying to eat it and go, oh, why does this taste so bad? And we do that with our thinking. We pick up the thoughts that, you know, in our mind we don't actually want to eat, and we consume them, and we're wondering why it is that we're having a foul taste or a really horrible experience.
For me, the thing about thought, if you like, is being aware of it. I think, you know, I think it's been really key for me to kind of just notice what's going on in my mind, you know, when I feel good and when I feel bad. Just get curious about, you know, what is it that's going on. And it just feels to me like there's real learning with just being aware that we have thoughts. And sometimes it doesn't appear that that's what's going on, you know, when something, and yet when I look at it, I kind of see things have landed in my head. Oh yeah, that's my thinking about that. We had someone on the call this morning that was, and we were talking about weight and body image, and it's really, really interesting that in our society we have a lot of things about body image and health and weight and things like that that don't look as if they are thought. It's kind of like, yeah, but this is real, you know, people should be healthy in this way, people should be this weight, you know, my doctor said I'm obese or whatever. And it's kind of like seeing, we don't realize that those things are made up. It doesn't look like thought had anything whatsoever to do with those things. And yet when we kind of stop, you know, where did it come from? Where did our idea of the ideal way of health, where did it come from? Thought. The fact that we thought, I like this and I don't like this, so this is ideal and I don't want that. And it's really interesting to me when we kind of start looking at how thought creates the reality that we live in. And when we argue with stuff, it's really, you know, like, no, I don't want that, I don't want that. It's a little bit like your conveyor belt.
Pick and choose. And yet how we pick the stuff we don't actually want.
And it is that whole, you know, if anyone's ever heard of that, don't think of a pink elephant. What are you thinking of right now? What's in your mind right now? We can't. And it is like, don't pick up that thought, don't pick up that thought. And when we're saying that thought's then in our head, isn't it?
And the more for me that I've seen and explored that our thoughts are a kind of conveyor belt, they're not, you know, they're not static, they're not something that just sits in front of, they move through. And it's like, if I don't take the thing off the conveyor belt, a little bit like what kind of food is it where you sit and it comes round on the Japanese like Japanese food. If you're in a Japanese restaurant and you're in front of one of those like food, you know, you can let certain meals go past and go, oh, I fancy trying a bit of that, or oh no, that doesn't look for me, and we forget that our thoughts are the same. Like, as we begin to see that we have thinking, then the kind of next layer to that almost is seeing that thoughts and thinking works on a conveyor belt kind of system, that we don't have to put our hand in and take every one of them. And, you know, to some degree we can even kind of put it back. Oh, actually, no, I've changed my mind, that's not for me. You know, and that is, for me, the more, you know, it's all metaphorical of course, but the more that I explore that's how thinking works, the more I've kind of seen that. And when you were just saying there about how it's actually the awareness of it that shifts something, I was reminded, there's a film I used to watch a lot as a kid, and we actually watched it fairly recently, and it's so much fun watching a film that you watched as a kid and seeing it as an adult and what you're like, it's Hook. It's like a version of Peter Pan. And there's a scene in that, to kind of stick with the food metaphor,
the food, yes.
where all of the lost boys are sitting down for a meal, and they've got no food, you know, they've got plates and they've got cutlery, and they're pretending to pick up food, and there's no actual food there. And then as the scene goes on a little bit, as they kind of engage their imagination, suddenly this food all appears and there's lots of it and it's overflowing. And it is that shift in awareness that's, we didn't know we had thinking on the buffet table of life. And suddenly, as we become aware of it, it's filled with all sorts of thoughts that we can pick and choose at. And it is that awareness. You see it happen in the scene, don't you?
Yeah.
That Peter Pan suddenly becomes aware that actually is food. And that's how it, for me, how thought, as I got into this conversation and as I've played around with it, the awareness that, oh, that actually is thought there doing something. Thought, it used to be invisible to me. It used to be like an empty table.
Yeah, it used to be like,
and now it's like a buffet of every possible thought I could want. And I don't have to have it all, If you sit at a buffet table,
you don't want it all.
Have to have it all. And, we don't want it all. So yeah, I just, as you were saying that about awareness, I was like, that's what happens to Peter Pan in Hook. He suddenly becomes aware that there's a table of food. And that's, that just changes something.
And yeah, definitely it does. And the whole awareness, I'm aware of thoughts that hurt me now.
Yeah.
It's kind of, and it didn't look to me, it felt like my hurt came from circumstances or came from something other than my thinking.
Yeah.
But I kind of notice these days, when I'm hurting, I see my thinking there. It's kind of like, I'm disagreeing with that. I don't like that. I'm having this thinking and I don't want it or something. And I notice that it's thoughts that cause me to hurt.
Yeah. And interestingly, in that one, for me, it's like, we don't even need to necessarily know the content.
No, not necessarily. Sometimes we do and sometimes we don't. I kind of seen that as well. But it's really, I find it fascinating that kind of playing around with that and seeing that it's not circumstances, it's not stuff that's going on that hurts me, it is my thinking that hurts me. And it's kind of, as I see that, and then as I look at look at the fact that I think and the fact that it is that causes me hurt, the more I understand that, it feels like that conveyor belt that you were talking about just kind of it moves past more quickly, certainly with the things on it that I don't want. It's not that I have to go in and change them and take everything off there that I don't want. It looks that as I understand that I can have thinking that really hurts me, and the more that I am aware of that and I see that's where my hurt comes from, and yet I don't have to listen to that thinking, and I don't have to believe that thinking. And sometimes it can really, really look real, but the more that I play around with it and the more that I'm aware of it, the lighter and easier my thinking seems to be.
Yeah, and we've toyed a few times in the last week or so with a metaphor around some of our thoughts being like kind of solid brick walls or solid concrete walls. And I know we've had that conversation with a couple of people in some of our coffee and chats, and how that as a metaphor, kind of realizing that our thoughts can appear very, very solid. Like it can really appear like they're not thoughts that I have any choice about. They're not thoughts that I pick and choose. They've just landed in my head and I don't even notice that they're there. They're that solid.
And even thoughts that don't, things that do not look like, this is true. This isn't a thought. This is true. And
it's that kind of seeing that can happen. And that as soon as we know that can happen, it starts to become visible. Oh, that's one that I've got set up as a concrete wall. And then as we kind of see that, then slowly something shifts around that. There's a hole in the concrete, or there's a gate available in the concrete, or, the wall isn't as tall as you thought and there's steps to get over it. It starts to shift something. But before we even know that we can have kind of thought walls, if you like, we're not even kind of looking for them there. Again, it's out of our awareness, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think this conversation invites those things into our awareness in a way that we don't always kind of open up in that way until something kind of invites us to. And this conversation ends up being that invitation. And equally, there's lots of ways we get those invitations. But
and to me, I think when I do feel uncomfortable, when I do when I do feel mental pain in a way. It's alerting me to what's going on in my thinking. And like you say, I don't have to, sometimes I do, but I don't have to actually work out what is the particular thought that's causing that pain. I just know, you know, when I feel like that, if I feel upset, annoyed, angry, frustrated, you know, any of those kinds of things, insecure, any kind of feeling like that, emotional feeling that I don't like, it's alerting me to the fact that I'm having painful thinking. That's what's going on. And the more that I kind of know that, the more that I am aware of that in itself, I don't have to do anything about it, but kind of knowing, oh yeah, I'm in a lot of pain here because I'm having a lot of painful thinking. That is a completely different experience to thinking that things out in the world are out to get me, or I need to change them, or there's something wrong with me. You know, that was a huge one for me when I realized it's perfectly normal to feel painful when we're having painful thinking, and there's nothing wrong. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's actually kind of, you're functioning as a human being. That's what human beings do. We feel pain when we have thinking going through our system that is painful thinking. It's kind of, yeah, you work perfectly. If you get anxious, if you get upset, if you get angry, you work perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely that. And I think for me, kind of just to maybe summarize it sounds to me like we're living and learning, is just, again, really seeing what Sydney Banks was pointing to when he said, if we only learn not to be afraid of our experience, that alone would change the world.
Yeah, when we see that our experience is created by a thought, and thought changes, then we stop being afraid.
Yeah, far less afraid.
Absolutely.
So loving this week, my loving this week is the lovely Colette Dennis. It's her birthday today as we're recording
happy birthday,
this.
Lovely Colette.
And Colette's been around, I think, for a couple of years now with kind of the work that we share, and follows a lot of what we do, and is often one of the first people that pops up when we do a live or recording, when we share stuff like this. She's often the first one that's there, liking it, following it, watching it, and it's her birthday. So a massive happy birthday, Colette. You're my loving today.
And my loving today is the lovely Barry, who is also someone who you know, has been around this conversation a little while, and we have a lot to do with Barry. We have a lot of conversations with him, and we were on Coffee and Chat earlier on today, and you know, if you've been around anything we share, you know that I've just recently taken up gardening, and we often talk about gardening, and Barry just sent something absolutely beautiful, a really beautiful metaphor for me about the garden, well, for us, about the gardening, and you know what it is we've been talking about around the garden, and it was just beautiful. So Barry, I love that, and I love you. Thank you very, very much. You're my loving this week. And if anyone wants to know what it is that Barry sent, if you comment under here or get in touch with us, I'll forward it to you.
Yeah, I think you shared something to read, isn't it? So
it's a thing to read all about connecting with nature in the garden, and it's particularly beautiful. So
nice. So our question this week: how do I save my relationship? We've only got 15-20 minutes on the board for this one. It's for me, interestingly, we decided, I think just yesterday, that we were going to use the same title for our blog next week. So I've already started to kind of think about how and what I'm going to put in that. So, you know, cool. It's a really interesting one to me, because you know, I think the question comes more from a kind of partner romantic relationship question, but actually I think the answer is, you know, relevant whatever relationship. You know, if you've got problems with family relationships, whether it is a partner, even if it's a kind of friendship or work kind of relationship that feels strained, it feels to me like, looking at our relationships, we start with self. Like everything we share about kind of relationships and how we work as human beings, it makes sense to me to come back to self. And I know one of the things that used to be very different for me in my life was that I did that the opposite way around. It would look like my problems, it would look like my happiness and my okayness and my peace came from outside. And it also looked like when there were problems, they needed fixing on the outside. And the kind of, for me, the crux of how to save any relationship is to come inward, is to come back to exactly like we've just been talking about in Living and Learning, seeing how thought works, seeing how we work as human beings, and actually getting clearer on our relationship with ourselves, who we are, how we work. Because from there, any relationship out in the world, whatever relationship that is, will change in some way. And there's no guarantees on what that might be, of course. But it just, it has an impact when we go inwards.
Absolutely. I guess for me, it's one of those questions, isn't it? How do I save my relationship? And I think one of the first things that I would say is let go of the need to do that. Because it is one of those, not every relationship, whatever type of relationship it is, whether it is some kind of family relationship, whether it is your partner, whether it is a working relationship, sometimes it is the right time to move on from someone. So I think sometimes when we come at this from a particular, this is the outcome that I want, and I'm not even going to stop and listen if you're not going to point me towards the outcome that I want. What I've noticed in my life is that some things I do in my life turn out beautifully, exactly how I would like them to, and some things don't. And what I've seen with relationships as well is, some people come into our lives just for a short amount of time, and some people come into our lives and stay for a very, very long time. People come in and out of our lives all of the time, and that is perfectly okay. And one of the things that it is very, very tempting to do, if we're in any kind of relationship with someone, and certainly some relationships have particular labels, don't they, that make it, my wife, my husband, my daughter, my mom, these kinds of things that those relationships we absolutely have to keep. Those ones are for life, and we have to keep them. And exactly, for me, part of the going inwards is the realizing that we don't control life. And when we start with self, when we start to look there, we begin to see that, maybe we don't know the best outcome for ourselves and the other person here, and, being open to something slightly different may be happening. But I think when we do that, when we do truly go inwards, when we do truly begin to see the truth of who we are and the truth of who the other person is that's involved in this, we begin to see something bigger, and we begin to see something, I don't know, beyond anything that we thought was possible. And so whatever the outcome is from that place, it will be a good outcome.
I know I've had conversations with people where we kind of have it set up like a relationship is, it lasts for X amount of time, or a relationship is, it never ends, or it never changes, or it never this, or it should that, or it should. And there's so many places we have rules about what a relationship looks like. And then we kind of label that one successful and that one a failure. And like you were saying, we just don't know how long somebody's meant to be in our lives. And when we've got it set up, they must stay for this amount of time, or our relationship must always be
a certain way,
fill in the blank, then we can have it, the question, how do I save my relationship? It can look like the answer to that must be that the relationship then becomes, draw what it looks like in the box to you. My relationship then now looks like this, because I've saved it, it's now going to fit in this nice tidy box. And actually, sometimes I can see that sometimes the biggest savior is a relationship ending, is two people, or ending in the way that we might term it ending, that those two people don't have the contact they used to, or don't operate together in the way they used to. That actually saves something in those two people in a very different way to kind of holding them together. And it is having it set up in our minds that the particular outcome we think is right is the only outcome we're going to accept. And then that inward conversation for me is about getting to know me, because then I see that I am okay no matter what. And I don't need a relationship outside of me to be a particular way, to fit in a certain box. And when I don't need that, I'm not looking to solve the problem out there either.
Interestingly, from that place, that is very, very often the saving of our relationships. It is there where we begin to see, I know in my relationship, the more, there's something that we say a lot, and that's bring it back to you. And it can be really interesting when somebody does something that we really don't like, that is annoying. They annoy us, and it's like, actually they should behave differently, or they do something that is generally appears unacceptable in our society. They shouldn't do that. Human beings, we have affairs, we are aggressive to each other. Human beings do things that appear we shouldn't do them. There's a whole story. We shouldn't be aggressive. We shouldn't have affairs. We shouldn't, whatever it is, those kinds of
cheat, steal, the normal
things all those things we have set up. And I don't know about you, but I've noticed people in my life, sometimes they do things that in my head, it's kind of, you shouldn't do that. And when, it comes to saving my relationship, it's like, I want to get back to this place, like either before that happened or, those kinds of things. And what I see is that this understanding that we're talking about, when we get to see the role that thought plays in the experience we have of life. I know, I've spoken to people and they've kind of been in situations where their partner has done something that looks unacceptable and unforgivable. So it's unacceptable and it's unforgivable. So how do I save my relationship from there? And what it looks to me like is what we share here begins to loosen that thought, begins to kind of see that there is something else we can see here. What if the most unforgivable thing turns out that we can forgive that? And I think from seeing those kinds of things, seeing that the person in front of you is doing what makes sense to them with the thinking they have in that moment, that looks real and true. And that's what I do too. And for me, then we find the place where we can forgive things that looked to us before totally and utterly unforgivable. And those kinds of things save relationships. They bring them back together. They make them solid. And, we see the beautiful connection we have with the other person. So it looks to me like it's all on the table when we begin to know ourselves, because from the place that we know ourselves, we start to know other people too.
Yeah, and there's something about kind of knowing ourselves and kind of like I was saying about coming inward and when we said about bring it back to you, that brings a clearer mind. And from that clearer mind, from that space of being clearer about who you are and how we work, that we don't go out into the relationships that we might have and try and kind of meddle around in them and throw all sorts of tools and techniques at them to fix them. We actually, from a clear mind, know what it is that we need to do. It might be that we want to have a conversation with someone. It might be that the relationship is over in the sense that it has been, that it's going to change from what it had been to something different. Or it might be that blossoms into a completely new, beautiful, different kind of relationship that you hadn't expected. And everything in between. It can be a whole host of things that, we haven't got time on the show to list all of the possible options here. And even if we tried, we'd forget some, I'm sure. But it's seeing that from that space of kind of a clear mind, a truth of knowing who we are, we turn up and do something different. From a space of they should have done this differently. I can't forgive them. That's not how a relationship should be. Whatever actions I take from there aren't going to be the most fruitful. They're not going to be the nicest. But when I see that I am perfectly okay, whatever happens with that relationship, I can turn up and be a caring, compassionate, understanding person. And, whatever comes out of that space is always going to be the right thing for me and for the other person. And when we have it set that we must fix or save something that is actually meant to move on, that is actually meant to change, that is actually meant to be a different thing now, we get we mess things up in quite an interesting way. And it's just starting to see that we can see we have something new that can come through us when we are prepared to get out of the way of the stories that we've, boxed ourselves into.
And relationships aren't static. I mean, human beings aren't static. Even when we are with the same person over a number of months, years, whatever, relationships, they don't stay static. we change, you know, from moment to moment. You know, human beings, it can feel, when we have the story of who we are, you know, I am this, I am the person who is like this, I am shy, I am outgoing, I am loud, I am quiet, I'm whatever it is. We have these labels about ourselves, and we kind of box ourselves into those labels and think that's how I am. And then we have relationships that are the same, you know, it's in this box, this is what it is. And yet over time we change. You know, human beings change, and over time can be literally moment to moment. I notice, you know, sometimes I feel like being quiet, sometimes I am loud and noisy and outgoing, and sometimes I'm not. And you know, as our relationships change and evolve, it's been so helpful to me to know myself on that human level, to know about my humanness and what I'm like as a human being, but also to know what it is that is behind the human being that I am. What is it that powers that human being, that kind of creates that and brings that into being in life? To know that part of myself too, and to see that, and kind of then working with those two things, watching how my relationships change, you know, from moment to moment, watching the part that thought plays in my relationship moment to moment. And then weirdly, it's really, really helpful when, you know, my partner does something that might, you know, I think, oh, he shouldn't have done that, he shouldn't have said that, he shouldn't have been like that. Or, you know, my daughter does, or, you know, Beck, somebody I'm working with, not that she ever does, obviously, but, you know, it's really interesting when we begin to see that. It feels like the two things can't be connected. You know, if you kind of turn up and, I don't know, somebody in your life, you know, with the question, how do I save my relationship? So something's happened, you know, maybe someone's cheated, or maybe you've grown apart, or maybe the children have left home, or maybe you've had a baby and it's put a strain on your relationship, or whatever it is. Maybe you're falling out with your teenage child. If something's happened, so you come up and it feels like something has changed, something's happened, and we need to do something to save that. So it's really tempting to kind of want to get into the details of he said, she said, I did, they did, all these kinds of things. And so you can feel really, really counterproductive to kind of say, right, let's take a breath and let's look at, let's get to know who you really are on a deeper level, and how this experience is being created. And it can be like, well, I actually know how it's created because he did this, she said that, and you know, so it can feel counterintuitive. And yet, as always, the invitation here is to take that breath and stop and look, because it is from there that miracles happen in our relationships. And it definitely, for me, all the relationships I am now in are much more, there's much more love and connection in all the relationships that I'm in, since I have started to look in that direction, since I've brought this back to me, since I've begun to understand who I am. And from that understanding, we see who the other person is more clearly too.
And I was reminded, as you were saying that, about a conversation we had this morning again on our coffee and chat group. It was a good chat this morning, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We were kind of talking about, because it's Colette's birthday, we were talking about birthday presents, and we were kind of talking about how sometimes somebody can buy a present and we can have it fixed in our mind, oh, they obviously don't love me, because why would they buy me that? Or, you know, if they loved me, what they would have brought me was, or even, they brought me that present, therefore they do love me. And the places where we can do that, you know, whatever relationship we're talking about here, this person likes me or loves me because, and we have our reason why, you know, what we've equated, what we've made connected, versus they don't love me because. And again, we hook things up. And I know this was something both Deb and I have done, where it's like, I know Deb's big thing was, if my partner loved me, he would dance with me. And one of my things for a long time was, if my partner loved me, he would come to church with me, when I used to kind of go to church regularly. And we kind of hook those things in. It's like, that person can't love me because they don't do this, or they do love me because they've done this and now they've stopped doing it, or they've changed the way they do it, or whatever it is. And for me, just starting to see the places where I do things and it has no connection with whether I love, you know, whoever. You know, I might do certain things, and from my angle, it's so obvious that doesn't mean that I love or don't love that person. And it's the same in, you know, it's the same both ways. Human beings operate the same way. We make connections between what means that a person loves us or doesn't love us, and those connections are just made up. And
you can really see that with behaviours, can't you? Within a relationship, it's some, you know, if someone has done something like cheated or lied,
they wouldn't cheat if they loved me.
They wouldn't lie to me if they loved me.
And it's just seeing that those two things aren't connected. That it doesn't. It's not an automatic thing. You know, they might love you or they might not. I can't say that. But what I do know is those two things aren't connected. We've connected them. And it's as soon as we start to see that in ourselves, you know, I haven't behaved that way because I don't love my partner, or I haven't done this because my partner's not very likable. The things that I do are because of what makes sense to me. And the more that I see that about me, the more I see it about other people, my partner, my family, my friends. And it just makes it that bit easier to turn up thinking, I've made a connection about how they feel about me. And actually, I can't know that those two things are connected. That's made up in my mind. And something in that shifted massively for me around how I am, how I behave, and how my partner can behave, and anybody else. So just start to look at, you know, a little bit around that, where we've made up that behavior equals they don't love me.
And it's kind of, again, that's interesting, bringing it back to yourself, isn't it? And seeing the places where maybe you don't do things that someone else wants you to do, or you don't behave in a way that someone else thinks you should. And then they automatically assume you don't care, or you're not nice, or you don't love them, or things like that. And it's kind of like, wow, you know, that isn't what's going on for me. Because interestingly, talking about birthdays, I'm, you know, one of my things isn't, I'm not great at remembering people's birthdays or sending cards or presents or things like that. And yet there is no connection there for me for how much I love that person. It's just, I don't know, I just forget sometimes, and I don't mean it. And it's not that I don't love the person. It's not that they're not important to me. And yet, you know, I can see sometimes that people can easily have the idea then that, oh, I don't care about them, you know, I'm not, they're not important to me. And I just see that's just not true. That's just not what's going on for me. My mind's just elsewhere. And for whatever reason, that doesn't seem like a big thing for me to do. And it can actually hurt me because I forget to do those things. I'm like, why am I not a person that can do that? You know, and this whole thing can kind of get out of control. But it's like, it was an eye-opener for me to see, you know, where I didn't do things that someone else would have liked me to do. And I saw, that's just not connected. No, I can either do that or not, but I love you either way. And it is seeing, you know, where we do that, and also where we look for things and we think, oh, they must love me because they do that. And maybe they don't. Maybe something's changed or moved on. And it's an interesting one to kind of play around with and begin to look at for yourself, and then, you know, the other people in your life. Because to me, I don't know, there is something amazing about getting to know ourselves, daring to look at who we are, daring to really look at that.
Yeah. So hopefully that answers the question even just a little bit. But as always with any of these questions and topics, if something's kind of come up for you and you want to connect with us more, there's lots of ways to do that. So drop a message below wherever you're watching this video. We're always happy to chat with people.
Absolutely.
If you want to know more.
Yeah, sometimes these things can bring things up for people, can't they? And if you want to have further conversations with us, please do.
Yeah. So our topic this week is following your passion. So this is I think this was something that came as kind of somebody asking about, how do I, you know, bring about my dreams or my passion or the things that I really want to do in life? How do I kind of do that? You know, it looks to me like the dreams or the passions that I have aren't, you know, going to bring in enough income, or they're going to take up too much time away from my family, or they're actually impossible because I haven't quite got that skill or that level of intelligence, or whatever it might be. There's things I want to do and I can't. for whatever reason. We have lots of reasons why we can't do the things that we'd like to do. And I think because our business is Dare to Be You, and very much, you know, certainly in the last couple of years with me moving from the Midlands to Devon to kind of work and share this with Deb, that was very much about following my passion and doing the thing that I'm kind of most passionate about. You know, I've always wanted to live by the sea, and I lived in the middle of England. You know, I couldn't have been
as far
further away from the
sea.
sea. So, you know, living by the sea was always a dream of mine. Running my own business and sharing this understanding was something I was passionate about. And a couple of years ago, we made it work. It was the right time to do that for all of us that kind of got involved in that. And we named the business Dare to Be You, because there is something about turning up in life, doing the things that make most sense to us, being, you know, out in life, sharing or doing what we're most passionate about. So it kind of made sense to us to name our business that, because actually we give something to the whole world when we turn up from a place of being passionate and being who we are. So yeah, that's kind of, it made sense to us to call the business that, because that is what we do day in, day out, following our passion, following our dreams, following what makes most sense to us.
Yeah, for me, I have noticed, that in life, some things I do work and some things I don't, and there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to that. And often, within our business, some things we do don't work out the way that we think they should, and some things work out way better than we ever thought that they would. But underneath all of that, I think, each one of us as human beings, we point to, when we're talking about going within, when we're talking about going inside, we're talking about looking to a place where all human beings are the same. We all operate on the same operating system. There is something in us that, we have a connection. There is a oneness between all human beings. There is something there going on. But equally, it doesn't look to me like it's an accident that we show up here with, different people liking different colors and different, some people like to be outside, some people like to be inside, some people like to paint and draw, some people like to do the garden, some people create amazing things, they're technological whizzes. I can't even say the words. But human beings, we have different things within us. We're like, it reminds me, with the gardening we're doing, I'm thinking about all these amazing seeds that we've been planting, and these seeds, they all have something slightly different within them. They're all going to burst out of their little shell and produce something, but some of them are going to produce vegetables, and some of them are going to produce flowers, and some fruit, and they're going to do something. And it's like all human beings, it's within the seed of who we are. It feels like we have things we like and things we don't like, and they're not necessarily, yours aren't necessarily the same as mine, but we all have things within us that, I don't know, we all have something amazing packed into our, within us that, and I think we can very, very easily get into a place where we can get so run down and so trodden down and so caught up in the thoughts, that we have, so caught up in the world that we have to do this, we have to do a 9-to-5 job, we have to, that we don't even look, we don't even sometimes know what it is we are passionate about and what we want to do and what we love. And sometimes we know it and it feels out of our reach. But like Beck said, one of the reasons that we called our business Dare to Be You was because on so many levels, looking in that direction and daring to be who we are, it just brings out the best in us. And when we are being our best, when we are truly being who we are, there just is no bigger gift you can give to the world. There is just nothing. If you were to win the lottery this week and win the biggest win that the lottery has ever had, millions, and you were to give it all to your favorite charity or some amazing cause that would do brilliant things in the world, you would not give as big a gift as you would that if you truly knew who you were and lived that. That is the biggest gift you can give to the world. And I'm not talking on a kind of a surface level. I'm talking about knowing, deeply knowing your spiritual nature and your human nature, how those two things come together to make something absolutely beautiful in this world. You know, when we do that, when we truly do that as human beings, there just is nothing better than that you can give to the world.
And I think, like, for me, the thing that I kind of see around the daring to be you and the following your passion is the places where we kind of don't do that we're too, we kind of scare ourselves out of it, because we've got it kind of mapped out that we could lose something by doing that.
Yeah.
You know, we've got something to lose here. I might not bring in enough income. I might not have enough time with my family. I might fail at what it is that I want to do, you know, and however you set up what failure looks like. You know, we have all these places where it's like, I'm already doing something that's kind of okay. What if I just stick at that, and then, you know, I won't lose anything. I can't, you know, I won't lose the money that I've got. I won't change the situation with my family. I won't fail at what I've set out to do. I'll just stay in this kind of safe haven. And it really kind of strikes me that the more that we do that kind of looking inward and getting to know who we are, the more that we see we don't have anything to lose here. We equally don't have anything to gain either. And I think that's the other thing, we can scare ourselves away from that. Because we are already whole and complete, that kind of balance of the human and the spiritual that we are, that we're this true essence of the entire universe that gets to have a human experience, that gets to play the game of being a human, we can turn up and try anything. And we'll either do it horribly wrong, and so what? That's only our made up story anyway. Or we'll have an amazing time and something wonderful will come from it. And equally, that's our story too. But it's about, for me, it's about what's the best human experience I can have here. And right now it's this one. And I have no idea if in 6 months, 2 years, 10 years, something else will look like a better human experience and I might try that. Or whether this is kind of the human experience I'll have in some form or another, doing this, sharing this, being this, you know, having this business for the rest of my life. I don't know. And it doesn't matter to me, because what I know is that in every moment, when I remember that I have nothing that I can lose and nothing I need to gain, I can just play all out. I can just follow my passion of daring to be me and, you know, doing these YouTube shows and putting out mentoring programs and holding virtual retreats and hopefully holding face-to-face retreats someday again soon. You know, I can do all of that because I remember that I don't lose anything. And I don't gain anything. And there's nothing I need to gain to be more or better. I come with everything I need in every moment. Like I've got, you know, the full package deal, and so have you. Like this isn't we've got it because we've, you know, for 4 years we've followed a spiritual path, so I've gained something. And, you know, we come with this already. And it really is just a game of remembering that we are already the allness of everything. We are whole and complete. We come with the full package deal. Every single one of us, you, me, everybody.
And it feels to me, you know, in life is about having fun. And I'm not knocking that there can be experiences that can be incredibly frightening, incredibly, you know, ones we don't want, that are scary, we don't like. But to me, when we follow our passion, when we dare to be who we are, we find things out about ourselves and we find things out about life that surprise us in ways that we didn't know were possible. And actually, life is light-hearted and life is fun and life is generous and life is kind. And then, you know, it doesn't always look that way. It doesn't always appear that way to us. And I think when we start on this journey, when we look in this direction, I know, you know, Beck and I, we have a lot of fun
We do. You might have noticed, or you might have missed it. But
not just on the screen. This isn't kind of we press go on this, and we half the time. Sometimes when we're doing things and we press go, it takes 10 times because we're laughing. So certainly with them, the mistakes that I make. Some things don't go the way that I want them, and but it just, life to me is lighthearted. It is fun. It is kind. And it is generous. And then it looks to me like, everything that's going on, it feels like a game to see that sometimes. What is following my passion and doing what I want to do? It's kind of like, how is this lighthearted and fun, and how is this a game? But when I ask that question, when I look, it feels like the answer comes and I see something. And it's been an amazing journey, moving house, moving in together, starting this, revamping, whatever, changing the business to do this together, following our passion like this, has been an absolutely amazing journey. And that it's definitely been a roller coaster at some times. There's been all sorts of things gone on, but it has been light-hearted and fun, and kind of continuing to follow our passion and do the things we love has just been a delight and a joy.
Yeah, I was thinking when you were saying about it being fun, it's like a giant snakes and ladders board game. And
that's exactly what it feels like.
Even kind of falling
garden
down.
Snakes and ladders.
Yeah, and even falling down the snakes is fun, because it's like going down a fantastic big slide,
And where do you find yourself then?
And then you get to kind of go again and have another round, and there's a ladder, quick, scurry up the ladder. And it is just, every experience that we get to have, we can find, the goodness in it. It doesn't have to be, all kind of, snakes are bad and ladders are good. It can be lots of fun.
Snakes are snakes and ladders are ladders.
Yeah. I watch my little niece, who's kind of 3 years old. I watch her playing around, and every experience she's having is fun. We had a little video the other day of her. She's been planting a lot of flowers over the kind of lockdown period, and my sister, her mom, has been putting little sticks next to her sunflowers to kind of prop the sunflowers up, and then she got the rest of the packet of sticks and was just putting them in the other, around the other flowers. There's no purpose to it. They don't need to be there for the flowers to grow, but she's just having a great time. In her mind, I'm guessing I'm a gardener now, I'm putting my sticks in, this is what we do. And she's just in that moment, and in the next moment she's doing whatever she's doing, because life is just it's a moment to moment experience. And whether that moment is putting sticks in the garden that aren't really needed, or something else entirely, we can just follow what is driving us. And in that moment, she was being driven to put her sticks in the garden. We can do that. We can just follow what we are driven to do, and trust that life has got our back here. There was a saying a little while ago, a friend of ours that we did some webinars and stuff with, who used to say, jump and a net will appear.
Yes.
Like, we can trust that if we take that leap, if we make that jump, the net will appear. And it might not be the net that we imagine. I have a picture in my mind of what that net looks like, and if me and Deb drew a net, I think we'll come up with different drawings of what that net looks like. And it's seeing that we don't necessarily know what that net is going to be like, but we can jump in faith. We can trust that life has got our back. And when we do that, we can follow our passions, because we will not lose anything. It's not possible.
And we can't gain anything to actually make us something we are not, but the fun, the lighthearted, the lovely adventure that we can have is just amazing from doing that.
The experience we can get.
The experience we get,
it's priceless.
Totally.
So I think that's our topic for the week, following your passion. So next week, thank you very much for joining us this week. It's been really great to have you all here.
As always.
And, like I said earlier, feel free to send in questions and topic ideas, because we always love to kind of talk about something that's particularly relevant for you. But next week, our question is, how do I get over losing someone? So that's, that'll be a nice one to explore. How do we kind of move on, so to speak? And our topic next week is our best relationship advice. So if you're in the market for relationship advice, join us next week. That will be we'll be on Facebook and live on YouTube again next Wednesday at 5 o'clock. So we'd
Yeah.
love to see you
So
there.
we look forward to seeing you then. So have a great week. Take care and bye for now.
Thanks ever so much.
Bye.